What is up, everybody? Ethan Newberry, the Ginger Runner, here for another Ginger Runner Live, number 67. Tonight is just me and you. It's going to be an intimate show. These rarely happen. I really like them when they do because it's usually because I have something I want to talk about. And tonight I do have something I want to talk about. And I think it's going to kind of help us to get the discussion going. And it's all about like change of plans. It's kind of the theme that I put on tonight's episode. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to get more specific as to what the hell I mean in tonight's episode. So grab your beverage of choice, whether it's adult or not, it doesn't matter, and sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's episode, Ginger Runner Live, episode number 67. Here we go. Ginger Runner. Yay! What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show, Ginger Runner Live, number 67. And as I mentioned, it's just me tonight. Kim is actually putting away all of our camping gear that we used this weekend, and I'm going to talk a bit about that here on tonight's show. So you might hear some noises. You might come in and say hello and stuff like that while we do the live show. For those of you who are watching live, welcome, and thank you for watching the show live. I like these. I like the ones where I get to just kind of chat with you guys. Those of you who are on the Patreon side, you kind of been getting this once a month now, and I really like it. I really like the intimacy as well as the communication back and forth between those who do watch live and me. It's great because I can basically chat back and forth. So tonight's episode, it's a themed episode. There's a theme that kind of came to me this weekend, and it's something that will affect a lot of us that race. And I think it's something that we can all kind of learn from and figure out how to work through. And that is basically changing plans. And I'll get specifically into that here. But first, I want to pop open my beer tonight. As Hopnosh brought this along camping this weekend, and it was great. It's such a good beer, and I was able to find it in cans, which is nice. So I am going to partake in this. There it is. Nice. All right. So what I really wanted to do is start the show off by sending my thoughts and sympathy to Dave Mackey, an incredible elite ultramarathoner, has done FKTs, rim to rim to rim FKT back in 2007, won numerous races of all varying distances. The dude is a beast. Had a pretty unfortunate accident this last weekend. I haven't met Dave before. He's someone that I've been looked up to since I started this because he's just one of those legends, and he's someone that I wanted to bring on the show for so long. And it sucks that the first time I'm talking about him on this show is because of an accident that he had this weekend running. And I found out about it. There's many more people who are closer to Dave who have talked about it. So if those of you who don't know what happened, I can give you the very brief synopsis because I don't know much. Basically what I've read, but there are news articles and friends of his and people that were first responders on the scene. Essentially, he was out for a trail run, and there was a bit of a rock fall on one of his descents off of, I believe it's Bear Peak in Colorado. And one of the rocks crushed one of his legs. And but because he's such a badass, he was directing people. Not only did he have to call out for help and get hikers to come help him, but he was directing some of the first responders and stuff like that, telling them exactly what's going on. And because he's just a beast and has such a high threshold for pain, I can't even fathom it. So my thoughts go out to him. It sounds like he's going to be okay. He's in the hospital. He's recovering. I think he had a bunch of surgeries on his leg. It's just going to be a long road to recovery. And as someone who I've looked up to since I started doing all this, it was a story that really kind of hit closely to me and affected me, and put a lot of things into perspective, really. And so that when I read about this and heard about this weekend, it kind of made me realize that things happen, things that are outside of our control. Really, what this show is going to be kind of about is figuring out how to process those things. However, I'm going to relay experiences that, basically what happened to Dave far outshadows anything I'm going to talk about in tonight's show. It is a horrible accident. I can't even begin to fathom what he and his family are going through, and I offer all of my support in any way. And hopefully, there's something that I can do through Ginger Runner to help support him. And I'm talking to some people about how we can make that happen. So yeah, that is like, I don't want to compare anything that I'm going to talk about in tonight's show to that, because that is extreme, and it just really personally affected me this weekend, because as a trail runner, both myself and Kim, and on all my friends, really, anything can happen to anybody at any time, and it definitely kind of puts things into a bit of perspective. That being said, what I mean by change of plans, this can relate to when you're running an ultra and something doesn't go right, something is amiss. How do you get through those moments? How do you alter your original plan? The same sort of thing happened this weekend for me and Kim, and it was kind of where this idea spurned as soon as it started happening. And that was, we had this big elaborate plan for the weekend to camp with friends up in Big Sur. We left early Friday morning, knowing it was Memorial Day weekend. Also, today's Memorial Day, so make sure you take some time to reflect on those who gave their lives, those of you who live in the United States and abroad as well. But it kind of happened on Friday morning. You know, we had all these plans and things just didn't go according to plan. So we had this camping thing worked out where we were going to go to one of our favorite campgrounds in Big Sur, which is a first come, first serve. We've done it in the past on big holiday weekends. Haven't had a problem. Leaving at 4 a.m. in the morning didn't necessarily help our situation, because people were waiting in line for the campsites. Basically, when we left LA, people were already there waiting. So it wasn't going to happen. And that just threw a huge monkey wrench into everything. And there's kind of this point when something like that happens, when you just kind of go, fuck. And this translates again into ultras. It happens all the time in almost every race that I've recorded or run. There's just some point when you just kind of go, fuck. And I'm sorry to swear for those of you who do watch this show with kids. Sometimes it happens, and it happened twice. So I think this happens to all of us, and you don't have to be running ultras for it to happen. It can happen in marathons. It can happen in 10Ks. It can happen in 5Ks. It doesn't matter. I know a lot of you live viewers out there don't run marathons yet, or maybe you're training for your first. So this is something I think will apply to everybody, because it affects us all at some point, one or another, or every point. You know, every race, it happens to some people. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, was how do we deal with these moments where you reach this roadblock or this Y in the road, so to speak, and figure out how to work through these problems. I'm going to use kind of these two metaphors, as the example to kind of work through tonight. Both the camping experience this weekend and kind of how we worked through it and managed to make basically the best out of a situation, as well as some experiences from ultras. And so those of you who are watching live, as we kind of talk through this, reflect in the chat room, and I'll try to kind of get through some of these comments. And, you know, I'm imagining many of you have very similar experiences as to what we're going to talk about tonight. So yeah, let's start with that. Basically, what's happened to me in the past during ultras is stomach issues, hydration issues, salt issues, heat issues, cramping issues. You know, the problems run the entire gamut. Not necessarily all at once, sometimes more than one at once. Other times it's just one thing that affects me very, very late in the race, but sometimes it's many things that affect me throughout the entire race. So when you get to one of these problems, I kind of have an idea of a way to work through it, and it's helped me work through these problems because it happens. And so I kind of reflected back this weekend and looked at that and went, we almost applied these exact same criterion to how we solved our problems this weekend. Can this be applied to other problem areas in our life, careers or family or relationships? Maybe we'll figure that out in tonight's show. That's kind of the benefit of being guestless and kind of doing these more intimate shows, is maybe we'll figure something completely mind-blowing out tonight. Or it's just going to be an hour of me talking and you guys listening and joining in the chat room. Who knows? Speaking of which, I'm looking at the chat room now. That's where my eyes are going. Raul, what's up, Raul? Benjamin Perry, John Tanner, Jazz Mangan. Love it. Okay. So people are talking about music, and my long legs is in the other room, jumping in there with Jess. Okay. So basically, here's kind of the rundown of the plan of attack when something goes wrong. Don't panic. So basically, step number one in my mind, anytime anything happens, I'm going to use the last couple races plus Squamish 50-50 because I think that's probably the most. I think you guys can relate to it because it's the film that I did that really documents the bad side of what happened those 2 days for me, as opposed to like all the, hey, look, it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. It was a lot of me filming myself in pain. So maybe that's something that I can talk about. And you guys go, oh yeah, I remember when that happened to you. Because I'm sure a lot of it has happened to you as well. So first thing, for example, in the Squamish 50 miler was at mile 7 of the first day, I ran into some major nausea and stomach issues. Basically any calories I took in or even any liquid, it was not sitting well. It was basically sitting right here. And rather than losing everything at mile 7 of my first day of a 2-day ultra, I'd rather figure out what the problem was. But step number one for me personally was not to panic. Panic makes you worry. It gets you frantic. It basically wastes energy. So anytime we're in a race situation, if we're bonking at mile 20 of a marathon, or we're not taking in the right amount of calories during whatever race, and you run into some sort of problem like a bonk or some sort of body failure, don't panic, because you will be able to reflect back on your training and know how to work through the situation, and the fact that your body has encountered this before. So, you can trust your history and stuff like that. But this is something that now, if it happens to me at any point, I just kind of go, hold on, don't worry about it. We're going to figure out exactly what's going on. Just chill. You also don't want to get mad or frustrated. That happened this weekend with the camping thing. As soon as I get to the campground, looking around, there's a line of people waiting for the sites. There's not going to be a site for us. My first instinct is like, oh, fucking, I'm so pissed. We drove all this way to get a site and to like have all our training runs going to be up in these hills, and I had everything planned of where I was going to run this day and do that. It was really easy to get into that frustration and mad zone, but I think there's a certain level of trimming that down and making sure that you can kind of calm yourself. So don't get mad, don't get frustrated. It's only going to waste energy and get you onto the wrong path. So you don't want to deal with that, and don't give up. This can happen later in ultras where your mind is already just so tired and wanting to finish. And same thing with marathons. Anytime I say the race distance tonight, I want to make sure that you guys all know that I refer to all race distances. I don't want to just cater to the ultra. But it's so easy for your mind to go, you now have stomach issues, you now want to just quit, just want to give up. Or your leg is completely cramping, you can't feel it, you need to just give up. Maybe you should just drop at the next aid station. So basically, step number one, when you encounter something where you need to change your plan, because nothing is going according to plan, just don't freak out, don't give up, and don't panic. So that's pretty much it. So once you hit that stage, it's very easy just to settle yourself down. You move on to the next stage, assessing the situation. So at this point, you need to figure out kind of what's going on. So if it's a hydration or a nutrition issue, we're going to figure that out, because you just need to assess, is it my stomach? Is it cramping? Is it a muscle related issue? Is it a heat related issue? Basically, it'll help you to work through the next step, which is problem solve. You just need to figure out what the symptoms are as well. Are you throwing up? Are you getting nauseous? Are you limping? Are you speaking gibberish, completely incoherent? Do you not have a campsite when you want a campsite? All very trivial things, by the way. The whole time I'm talking about this tonight, I'm also thinking about Dave Mackey, and everything that happened to me this weekend is completely trivial. So I need to put that out there as well. And basically anything that happens in an ultra, completely trivial. So yeah. But you want to make sure that you assess the situation, figure out what the problems are. So now you can move into the next step, problem solve. And I want to say this, kind of how I was thinking about this weekend and today. You're going to be problem solving, but it's not necessarily solving the problem, because not all solutions will work for whatever given problem at any given time. So just because you have a stomach ache or feeling nauseous on one day doesn't mean the next time that same symptom happens, it's going to be the same solution. You're going to kind of have to do it on a case-by-case basis and just kind of figure it out. I'm already losing track of what's going on in the chat because there's so much discussion. But John Tanner brings up a great point. Timothy Olson at Hard Rock last year is a great change of plan story. Exactly. I use stories like Timothy Olson's and many stories from you guys as this exact sort of basis for the step-by-step plan. I think this is kind of how everyone works through these issues that they encounter during a race or during some sort of training cycle or something when they get to these blocks, whether it's mental, physical, nutritional, or anything like that. So, okay, back to the problem solving, not necessarily solving the problem. Example, food isn't digesting. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a food issue, doesn't necessarily mean it's a hydration issue, doesn't necessarily mean it's a stomach issue. It could be something else. So the trick here is to now move on to our next step, which is trial and error. And this is where we kind of figure out how to fix the problem, not necessarily solve it based off of experience in the past, but know that you will be able to fix the issue with a little bit of trial and error. I have had so many issues in the past with, I think it's essentially taking in too much liquid too soon. So what I've learned is that in the early stages of a race, any distance, I tend to just get right on track with my taking in 20 to 24 ounces of liquid within the first hour and every hour after that. The problem with that sometimes for me is that it leads to the inability to digest any of the fluids or any of the calories that I'm putting into my system. So what I end up doing is I get to the stage, for example, Squamish 50-50, where that nausea comes up and it's completely debilitating to the point where, you know, yes, I can flush my system, stick my finger down my throat at mile 7 of a race and just get rid of everything that was in there already and start from scratch. That is an option. Those of you who watch the show often know that throwing up for me is like, so in my mind, I kind of go through that, what is happening, and I realize that I am retaining a lot of that liquid that I put in there. And so some of my problem solving and trial and error happens to be letting it digest and stop taking anything in, which isn't always the best. Basically, I've heard from every coach and every ultra that ultra elite and stuff like that I've had on the show is never stop putting stuff into your system. You know, never stop eating and never stop drinking. But what's my first instinct? To stop. The second I start feeling ill or something wrong, I just stop putting stuff in to hope that my body resets. In many cases, it does eventually, but that's not necessarily the best solution for the problem. So during the trial and error, at least in my experience, it's just a matter of figuring out exactly what can help remedy or at least fix that solution temporarily or get you through that hump. And in many cases, it has been just taking a bit of a break and letting that liquid digest. It also has incorporated a bit of slowing down. So walking and basically moving as fast as you can without pushing yourself beyond that limit too early. So you can kind of let your body reset and let your body work through that problem. I know that there's a number of other people that have had other issues during ultras late in the game, and sometimes you don't want to slow it down by that point, maybe because you're trying to get a certain time, like if it's a Boston qualifier or something like that, and you're already so dedicated both with training and during that race that the last thing you want to do is like, I gotta take care of this. So I've had a number of friends that have also done the same thing where they just push through. They know that the distance to the end is hardly anything that they're going to have to worry about. So, you know, they'll push through, they'll throw up on the run. Sage has talked about this a number of times as well, Sage Canaday, where he's running down during North Face 50 miler in December, and he wants to win this damn race. And he takes in some, I think it was calories at that point. It was a Coke or something like that. And he had to lose it all back out. He had to throw it all up, but that solved his problem that essentially allowed him to win the race. So there are different solutions for different problems and stuff like that. Here's, I think, the key is when you get to one of these points where you're at a roadblock, you have to figure out how to get through this problem and both mentally and physically deal with it. it's embracing the new path. And I think that's the key in actually getting through to the other side. It's so easy to get caught up in the frustration of, all right, I have a bad stomach, or I'm having all these muscle cramps, and I'm trying to deal with it by taking in extra salt or taking in extra liquid or taking in extra food at every aid station, but it's not helping. Nothing's changing. I'm still suffering. Things are getting worse. It's just a matter of like embracing that pain, embracing that suffering, and continuing to be diligent about trial and error, because the solution will find itself. You will figure it out. And as long as you embrace that new path, everything will be fine. And as long as you don't give up, you'll be able to push through and get through to the other side. Pretty much every time in any sort of race where I've hit a roadblock, and I would say almost every race has some sort of level of roadblock. Even if I'm super well trained for a marathon or a 50K or something like that, and I get into it and I feel really confident and I feel great for the first part of the race, there usually is a point in the race where the wheels come off at some level to some degree. And it's just a matter of dealing with that issue and knowing that whatever new path lays itself out, just embrace it. Squamish 50-50, mile 7, not being able to take anything in, walking for 17 miles, essentially walking and light jogging, just to like let everything reset and figure out what the hell was going on with my body, was so hard to do. It was so hard to mentally go, well, there goes my weekend, or there goes all my goals, but there came a point, I was walking and running with this gentleman who had run Squamish, I think pretty much every year since its inception. And he was just helping me put it all into perspective and realize that whatever this new path was that I was on was fine. And I needed to embrace that. It was now the new plan. And if for some reason that new plan went awry and something else happened, I needed to go through the same stages, through those same steps, being able to assess the situation, being able to trial and error and kind of fix it, figure out how to get on top of it, stay confident through it, not give up through it. And that, I think, has allowed me to be much more positive with the experiences, because it's so easy to get down on yourself about a lack of performance, not performing up to your what you would think your level is during that race or any of that kind of stuff. It's just it's being okay with whatever the results are. Sure, you can go back and attack a race and kill it the next time. That's fine. Get your revenge on that race. But I think being able to embrace anything that happens and go down that new path, and embrace anything that happens on that new path and go down the new path. And that is just this kind of escalation of how these races have unfolded and worked out best. So, I mean, that takes a lot of just kind of being okay with failure in some senses, where, you're not necessarily dropping out of the race, but you're just kind of coming to grips with whatever the problems are during that given situation, and being okay with it. So I want to turn it kind of over to you guys a little bit. How many of you, or who has had any sort of issues during their races in the past? Let me know in the chat room, and I'll relay those and we can talk about them. Devin is saying, if I was at mile 99, I'd be begging someone to throw me in a stretcher or wheelchair and have them haul me to the finish. I think it's pretty funny. I think anyone that's managed to run 99 miles, and if you only have a mile left, if you're talking about a 100-mile race, I'm pretty sure you would do anything in your power to get to that finish line, even if it is requiring someone else to carry you there, which I don't think actually allows you to finish officially. But yeah, I think there is this certain level that you get to in any race, whether it's a marathon or an ultra. It's like a certain distance where your mind kind of clicks over to the finish countdown. For me in a marathon, it's you get to mile 20, and then it's just like, even though it might be uphill, it's downhill from there. You're like, yeah, you can get through these last 6, just push it. That's just pain. Don't worry about it. In 50Ks, I feel like that is also mile 20, because then you start counting down and getting into single digits sort of. And that is just like this mental hurdle that you can get to. And no matter what sort of problems have arisen up to that point, as long as you can get there, at least for me mentally, you can just get through to the finish. And with 50 miles, I think it's 35 or 36. There's something in those miles when you get to that point that you go, oh, it's only 13 or 14 left, which is just, it's crazy to think like that. Only 13 miles left of a 50-mile race. I don't know what it's going to be for Cascade Crest 100 miler later this year. That's a whole nother beast. Is just kind of thinking, yeah, I can get over these hurdles and these 50Ks and 50 milers and 100Ks. How the hell am I going to get over these hurdles and the 100 milers? Because I have heard and experienced by crewing other people that it happens multiple times. So there's going to be multiple hurdles and multiple problems and walls and figuring out how to get through these certain problems. And a part of me is kind of excited about that because I like, now that I've been like in really bad pain multiple times, it's almost like I kind of crave it because it's such a wonderful relief when you finish the race to know you got through these really terrible personal moments and personal achievements. I guess is kind of what it is. You get to bask in kind of those personal achievements, and they're going to be different for everybody. Whether it's going to be the distance itself, whether it's going to be dealing with a certain sort of nutrition issue or a muscle cramping issue or something like that. These little personal achievements that you get when you finish a race, they're all yours. They're yours and yours only. So I think that's kind of the cool thing that I really, really like. I had one more note here, and it's kind of like, for me, it's also the one big takeaway. So not only embracing the new path, but learning from the journey itself. And that's one thing that I think none of us, I think all of us can't get enough of. Those words don't sound right coming. I'm also delirious. Been driving all weekend, camping, and basically, sleeping on ground, which was awesome. My mind is kind of mushy. But yeah, it's learning from the entire process. So I'm able to, one of the main reasons why I started to do Ginger Runner, kind of making the films and documenting the races, was so I could look back and learn from my failures, go back and learn from my mistakes. That is why I include a lot of footage of me in pain and complaining, because I can go back and look at that and go, yeah, I was having a really terrible day. I remember all of the issues that I had at that moment, and I can't relay any of that on camera because I can't put, I guess I could put a GoPro on my stomach, but it's not like you guys would want to see that film. I'm just saying that it's a great way for me to go back and learn from these experiences. And I think that is ultimately what we can all take away from problem solving and changing of plans, because we'll be able to conquer the next big hurdle when it arises. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully nothing does. But I think that's really, really helpful. I hope that this show isn't super scatterbrained. Literally, as I'm talking, I'm realizing it's super scatterbrained, and that is camping mind. And I also haven't drank much of my Hopnosh. I should have had a couple of these before this show, because I think it would have made me a lot more thinky, which is maybe beneficial. All right. Oh, I just passed. Oh, that was a great comment. Getting outside of the comfort zone. I have to scroll up. I don't even know where it was. Oh, there we go. From Randy. Everything you want is just outside your comfort zone. Getting yourself to accept that discomfort and realize it's part of getting to your goal is half the battle. Nailed it with the wordage there, my friend. We all have our reasons why we're running, whether we're running 5Ks, whether we're just starting, or whether we're running 100-mile ultras. We all have our reasons, and every person's reason is valid. And everyone's journey is different. Okay, so I want to put that out there first. But I totally agree that I think a large part of this, and why a lot of us continue to do this, is putting ourselves outside of our comfort zone, facing our fears, dealing with these problems as they arise. So by being free and more apt to changing your plans, I think makes you a more free person just in general. This weekend, I hope many of you had some incredible adventures. I hope many of you spent time with family and loved ones, and I hope many of you reflected on your own paths. why this show is something that I wanted to do was because this weekend just happened to personally be for me kind of a cool experience, being able to kind of reflect and go, I am far more willing to kind of change my plans now than I was 5-10 years ago, where things were much more like, I'd be really fucking furious if things didn't go my way. And I like being able to be a little bit more free personally for me has been super healthy and great. And that's really why I wanted to kind of talk about this, because not only was the weekend plans kind of out the window, it still resulted in a really great weekend, both with Kim and my good friends, Aaron and Bailey. We went camping and found a spot and made a bunch of adventures and have a bunch of stories from the weekend. So even though we embraced this new path, we were able to create new cool things. It allowed me to kind of reflect back and go, man, this totally translates to the ultra world too, and to all running, whether it's whatever the distance. And I think we can all kind of look at that from kind of an outside perspective and kind of see that we're all learning, we're all teaching ourselves how to get through these problems, and we're all putting ourselves outside of our comfort zone by choice and working through those down moments. Man, yeah, talking about the Timothy Olson issue, I can't even fathom what it was like for him. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, go watch the episode where I had Timothy Olson on. We talked briefly about it, or go read his race report from Hard Rock last year. Brutal day for him. And as an avid fan of his and reading through that, you just go, man, this guy put up with basically the worst day ever. He wouldn't wish that on anybody. Nobody would wish that on anybody. And he still got up and moved and finished the race. I don't mean to spoil it if you don't know the end, but he does finish, and it's pretty damn inspiring. Stories like that are really cool to read and to witness and stuff like that. All right. Let's see. Scrolling through here, guys. Every ultra that I've run, only 3, I have serious problems with nutrition around mile 30. I just can't convince myself to keep eating, says John Tanner. I mean, I've had the problem. Everyone who's run an ultra in the chat room probably has had the same problem. There comes a point when like putting food in your mouth just doesn't sound appetizing. It feels like as if you put something in, it's going to come right back out. Had those moments. Talking about those moments tonight. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Is you realize what the problem is. I can't put food in. The calories aren't getting in. I'm now going to be at a calorie deficit. Rule number 1: don't panic. Don't freak out. Don't worry. Just assess the situation, figure out what you can do to help remedy it, or at least remedy it 5 miles from then. If you're not able to put calories in, maybe you can put some liquid in. If you can't put liquid in, maybe you need to take a little bit of a break at an aid station, or slow it down a little bit, let your system readjust, reset, and then start from there. There are so many different options in that case, but you're not alone. And mile 30 is one of those weird miles for those who are in the ultra realm, because mile 30 is like the marathon's mile 20, in the sense that like everything will go to shit at mile 30, unless it doesn't, in which case you're just going to, hopefully kind of crank on through to the end. But 100 miles, I wouldn't even know. I don't know if there's a mile 30 and then a mile 60 and then a mile 80. I don't know. But if you could push through it, which it sounds like you did, you can usually solve the problem later on, or, get the finish, get whatever you need to get done. Manda, I'm worried about taking in solid foods during my ultra. I'm experimenting with liquid calories. Yeah. So when I made the move to liquid calories, one of the reasons I did that was because of problems that I was having with solid food up to a certain mile. I would get to like mile 25 or 30, and then I would start taking liquid food or liquid calories, and it would help solve all my issues, and I would be able to finish the race without any major calorie issues or nutrition issues. But that was a couple ultras in a row. So that's not always going to be the case. And that's kind of what I found now is as long as you get the calories in, and whether they're liquid or solid, calories are calories, at least from my experience. It's just a matter of what kind of the output is and the heat and the expenditures in that realm. Because I've now been experimenting a lot with going back to taking in solid foods and finding none of the problems that I had earlier on when I would take in solid foods, and it would cause problems. So it is kind of this experiment, or the trial and error that I'm talking about. in one of those stages where you're trying to figure out what the problem is and figuring out what the symptoms are. In this case, it's feeling nauseous or not being able to take in calories. How can we problem solve and try some new things? Maybe we take in the solid calories earlier on. Maybe we take in the liquid calories earlier on and take in solids later. Or maybe we take in both at the same time early. You know, it's finding that balance and kind of figuring out what works. It's also being flexible and knowing what works this day might not work that next day. And then embracing that path and being able to just focus on the success that you just had, or working on the success that you're working on at that moment, and then getting to the finish. I love it. Hi, my name is Amy. Hi, my name is Aim, and I like to suffer. I think we all like to suffer. I think that's why we're all here. If you're watching live, I have a pretty high suspicion that you also like to suffer. And I think that's what kind of bonds us all. Yeah, right there. Someone else says, I also like to suffer. I've sprung leaks on my hydration pack a few times. Fortunately, they haven't been during runs in hot weather, says Raul. I don't, whether you guys are talking about hydration packs or I just kind of found that. That's another sort of problem. Like, what if you encounter some sort of equipment failure? In that case, you really do have very few solutions to the problem. But I've heard some crazy stories of people cutting the, like having blisters on their toes at mile 60 of a 100-mile race, and then they just cut the top off their shoe. They just cut out the entire front top of their toes and let their toes just be open air, and then basically not having any more blister issues for the rest of the race. The shoes are done. That's like full equipment failure, equipment done, gone, trash. But they managed to finish. They didn't have a backup pair of shoes or a drop bag anywhere. They just had to get it done in whatever way they could possibly get it done. In this case, with the hydration pack, I feel like I've heard many people have had some sort of issue with the hydration pack at some stage. And so the problem is that they're not able to keep any of the liquid in their pack, especially if it's like a hot day or something like that. They will get to an aid station and then duct tape however they can the hydration pack and take the tube out of the attachment point and put it just directly into the pack and duct tape the top of the pack so the sloshing doesn't cause all the water to come out. I mean, I've heard of crazy stories like that. Duct tape apparently solves everything. But yeah, it's basically turning into MacGyver. And that kind of applies across the board, whether it's equipment failure or stomach failure. You just kind of have to turn into MacGyver and figure out exactly what the little intricacies are that are going to help kind of remedy whatever the problem is. I stick with gels. They're damn nasty, but they're the only thing my stomach will allow. Made my own a couple of times. Worked marvelously, says Zev. I've heard of that as well. Now, gels are great. I always carry gels on me. I have a ton of goos that I will always carry on me, and I always use them as like supplemental. So if I'm taking in Tailwind or any sort of liquid nutrition, I'll supplement with the gels as like a little bit added stomach stuff to digest, I guess. And that's helped a lot. I haven't actually tried making my own gels, but I've heard multiple people doing that. And I've heard of multiple people making their own, what is it, like rice bars or rice balls that they'll mix with certain sort of proteins, whether it's bacon or eggs or, something like that for a more savory rice ball. But they can also do sweeter ones with all sorts of like sweet goodies, fruits and sugars and stuff like that. And they'll carry those. So rather than relying on any sort of liquid nutrition or goos or aid station food, they'll just have their own food with them, and they do marvelously. So they've been able to solve their problems with dealing with various, aid stations will always carry different things. And even in the same race, no two aid stations could potentially be the same. So they just kind of solved all those problems by figuring out exactly what they needed, in which case it was their own food and their own recipes. And they did that, and it's worked marvelously for them. So Zev, let me know what you do to make your own gels. That sounds fascinating. Mile 30. Oh, this damn chat room, guys. It just scrolls all by itself. Kerner's UTMB story is funny. He had to wear, Kim, you okay? Yes. All right. He had to wear pants that cover his knees, required, and he ended up wearing women's capri tights that chafed him the whole way. I did not realize that, Devin. That's really, really funny. So basically his solution to his problem, which was no exposed knees, I guess, for that race, is to wear women's capri tights. I wonder if he figured that out like day of the race or day before the race. It sounds like that's the only reason why he would have to jump into women's capri pants, is if he just didn't have them on hand. So that sounds pretty funny. Powdered Tang. People like powdered Tang. That's interesting. I don't know how many calories Tang has, but I can imagine it solves many problems and helps you find your own change of plan and your own embracing of a path. Tang, bringing astronauts to the moon and solving the random ultra marathon issues. Yeah, people are talking about Tailwind, and I brought it up being one of those items that I'm able to take in, and it's able to digest pretty well. It also, depending on how thick or thin you mix it with water, it can, in some of my cases, has just overloaded me with water, which in my situation has made me super nauseous, and just, I get the belly bloat where you're running around with a belly full of liquid that's just not digesting. I found that the way to get that solved is to slow down, but that's also not what I always want to do, because, especially if it's towards the beginning of a race, you don't necessarily want to slow down, or even if it's towards the end of a race. So sometimes I like to mix it a little bit thicker, depending on the heat and depending on how I know my sweat rate is going to be on that day. Hopefully, I'll mix it a little bit thicker. And by thicker, I don't mean like paste. I mean an extra half scoop or an extra scoop in a water bottle. And that's actually helped a lot too. So that's kind of been the solution to that problem. And I am figuring these things out as I go. Problems arise all the time. I love hearing stories of people running into these issues or having these harrowing experiences during an ultra, and they're just like, "Oh my God, I couldn't believe that, I couldn't take in food for 20 miles or this, or capri pants. I had to cover my knees, so I had to wear women's pants." Like, I love hearing these stories, because the end result is usually always someone somehow finding success or being able to fix the problem and conquer the problem and then embrace this new path, which I think is so awesome. I love hearing these types of stories. I think it's really great, and we all run into them. That's what's crazy. We all run into them. Let's see, black currant anything is awesome, says Peking Duck. Really interesting flavor there, black currant. Are you from the UK? I feel like that's a UK or a Canadian thing. Tip: go to Ross or Marshalls and buy the Dutch Strop waffles, like a quarter of the price of the honey sticker waffles, just as delicious. There you go. See, now we're solving a problem with too expensive nutrition. The nutrition that just costs too much money. Go to Marshalls, go to Ross, buy these little delicious cookie waffle things for a fraction of the price of some of the bigger name nutrition items. There you go. And Zev, bringing up the making your own gels, that's another great way to kind of save on costs. As long as you know what you're doing and you're making a recipe that works for you, I'm willing to bet you're saving a lot of money by doing that. And you're able to, every time you run out, you're just able to make a new batch. I'm still waiting to see what he's doing as far as with recipes and stuff like that. No problem. I always seem to get a blister, even with a bigger shoe. I've gotten used to it. Never get used to blisters, man. Blisters just no good. Chris Fargo, this is the best piece of nutritional advice on the internet. And he links to Energy Gel website comparison. Thank you, Chris Fargo, for dropping a URL in the chat room and not divulging whatever it says by dropping the knowledge on us. Fruit paste. People are talking about fruit paste, honey stinger, all sorts of nutrition now. So honestly, guys, that's kind of today's episode. Very, very intimate, right? It's just you and me, and that's kind of the way I like it sometimes. I think it's fun. It's flexible, and it allows us to just kind of talk about whatever the theme is. Hi, you're just gonna come in and wave and then leave? Yeah. She's getting dinner ready, so obviously I can smell it, and I'm getting starving, very, very hungry. So I'm gonna just wrap it up. We can move into a quick post show where we can just talk about whatever's going on in the chat room, because honestly, I can't keep up with you guys, which I like. I think it's cool that you guys have a little community going on in the chat room during the live shows. I think it's awesome. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight. The whole idea of changing of plans and being okay with it, not panicking, embracing it, trial and error, figuring out whatever you need to get through it. We're all going to encounter these problems, not only in an ultra, not only in a marathon, in life. Things come up. The more flexible we can be, the more understanding we can be, and the more lenient we can be on ourselves and not really getting angry in the situation, I think it just leads to a healthier us. And I don't mean to turn this into like a Lifetime television show or any sort of self-help episode. I'm just kind of reflecting on this last weekend, thoughts about other things and other people and stuff like that came up this weekend, as well as anything that I can do to like help put this out there to help you guys. Not that you guys are having any problems, because it sounds like you guys are all working through your own shit, which is great. Super healthy. So that's it for today's show. It's short. It's a short one. But it's also because we just got home from a long road trip and I'm a little delirious. Next week, it's going to be awesome. Next week's show, this next weekend, I will be traveling to Flagstaff, Arizona. Chris Vargo's in the chat room. Chris Vargo will be in person in Flagstaff next Monday. So he'll be on the show because I am coming to you live from Flagstaff from Wanderlust Brewing. I am very excited about this. Not only do I get to visit Flagstaff, which I have not visited before, I'm so excited about it. But I get to be tortured by a really cool company there called Hypo2. They're putting me through kind of this gauntlet of recovery and training, and basically they're hooking me up with their experts to kind of throw me through the gauntlet. I'm going to be documenting the whole process and stuff like that. So I'm going to be making a video about it because I'm really, really excited about it. But it's all going to be at 7,000 feet. So it's all going to be at altitude. I have no acclimatization at this point. So I'm really going in at sea level. I'm going to get my ass handed to me and documenting the whole thing. But next Monday, Ginger Runner Live will be coming to you from Wanderlust Brewery. Rob Krar, Chris Vargo, Alicia Shea, hopefully Jameel Curry. I'm trying to convince him to come up out of Phoenix, but there's just going to be a whole cool community there from Flagstaff. We're going to be giving away tons of prizes, both to the internet live viewers as well as to the live audience that is there at Wanderlust Brewery. It's going to be the same time, 6 p.m. Pacific, which I think is actually the same time there. I think it's Mountain Time, 6. Same thing. I forget. That actually kind of freaked me out the other day when I looked that up. I don't know if they changed the hours or what. It's still the same time there. So nothing changes. It's just the venue is going to change. I'm going to be doing another live show from another venue with a live audience and then live people up there with me. I'm very, very excited about it. So you will not want to miss that. This show is probably okay if you missed it. I'll be totally honest. It's just one of those long weekends of awesome camping with friends, and I hope you guys got a chance to get out there with your friends or family and do something cool. Let's talk about that in the post show. Tell me some of your stories. Tell me what's going on. Otherwise, next week, guys, you won't want to miss it. If you're getting out there training hard, racing harder, and partying the hardest, I know I am. And I hope you like the new set behind me. I do. And if you are listening to this on the podcast, this is probably one of those episodes that you're like, why is he? I hope I didn't ruin your run. I'll just say that. I hope I didn't ruin your run. Follow me on all the social networks. Over on Twitter, it's at The Ginger Runner. Facebook, facebook.com/The Ginger Runner. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. On Instagram, it's at Ethan Newberry. And join me on the Patreon page, patreon.com/The Ginger Runner. New music there to download. If you haven't already, go check that out. New stuff going up there all the time. I have a couple videos I'm going to be posting just for Patreon members in the next few weeks, so you won't want to miss that if you are a Patreon member already, or if you're not, you won't want to miss it. Let's move on to the post show. I say that all the time. At the end of every show, I say, hey, the show's going to wrap up. Let's move into the post show. And then 20 minutes goes by, and then we move into the post show. So I'm going to actually do it this time. We'll see you guys in the post show. Stick around. Yay! That's called a train of thought show, where there isn't much of a structure or form. And I like them. I do and I don't. Because then it gets to the point where I'm like, well, I kind of went through my bullet points. So is that the end of the show? I could talk forever. I really could. But no one likes that. So that's why I'm going to save it for the post show, which is what is happening right now. I also don't like those shows because I don't get to drink my beer. I find myself talking and forgetting to sip. Kim, are you making broccoli? Are you making broccoli?
I'm sauteing a bunch of different vegetables, yes. Broccoli is in there.
Smells like fart.
That's probably you.
It probably is me. But I don't think it is. I just smelled like vegetable fart.
Did it remind you of this weekend?
It's reminding me of this weekend. All right. So thank you for being patient, guys. This is the post show. This is where we, the crazy hijinks from the regular show that don't occur get to occur here. That makes no sense.
Now everybody thinks that you think your wife's cooking smells like fire.
No. Everyone knows that broccoli, when you open like a package of broccoli or something, it smells like fart. It just does. All these fart comments are for the kids watching. There's so many kids that watch this show. It's such a kid-friendly show. I want to catch up in the chat room. This is really where the show's going to get good. I should just reverse this week's episode and make the post show the real show and the real show the bonus post show. All right. So Windows LM. Well, if you do, I wish you luck. The Mongoose store looked very. I missed whatever the conversation was. So I tried my first 24-hour race last week. Change of plans. How about take the plan, stomp them, throw them in the fire, onward, gotta gain experience, and fight another day. That sounds like a story, my friend. I have a feeling my first 100-miler will be a similar situation of like, here's my plan, there it goes, it's gone, and I got to figure out what the hell to do now. That's like exactly what I wanted to talk about in tonight's episode, was really just kind of being able to. It really comes down to that first bullet point of not panicking. I think that's like, for me personally, that's kind of that's the one I don't want to like let the anxiety or let the worry or let the panic take over and then ruin the day. I think that could be really easy, especially, if you're running a 100-mile race and you're at mile 60 or 70, when you're so far into it and you still have a long ways to go. I can imagine that running into some issue there is like, what the hell do I do? What do I do? And not freaking out too badly. That's what I imagine it's going to be like for me. So as long as I can kind of get into that mental space now of don't worry, don't freak out. It's just a change of plans. It's not so much a end of plans. That's kind of the whole thing. Methane. John, start drinking post-show 3 times. It is a fart. Don't light a match. Chris Vargo, headed to Alicia. See you soon, Ethan. Chris Vargo, I cannot wait to see you guys in person in Flagstaff. That is going to be a blast. I'm really, really excited about that. I have not been to Flagstaff. All the pictures, all the videos, everything I've seen makes it look fantastic. It looks amazing. Trail runners, mountain bikers, skiers, paradise. It sounds like it's just everything in one city. A lot like Boulder, a lot like Colorado and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit different. It probably has really, really really nice, beautiful summers too. So I'm very, very excited to go. I'm also terrified of the altitude. Just not terrified. I'm just going to say, I know it's going to take a while to get used to it. What I'm terrified about is getting into Flagstaff on Thursday and getting my ass handed to me Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is kind of what the plan is, I believe, at this point. This last weekend, I tried to get it to altitude. I think the highest we were able to get is 7,200 feet. And it was for maybe a half hour. And just walking up like a side of a mountain for 20 to 30 minutes was exhausting. It just does something when you live at sea level. Going immediately to altitude, you just feel it right away. So I hope to be able to tolerate that. I'm going to try to do a couple things this week to deal with it. Beer check. Yeah. All right. Time to drink. Found a house to rent in Denver near Washington Park. Lori Hall, a frequent visitor of the show, I believe she was been talking about moving for a long time. Congratulations, Lori. You've mentioned that you were looking in Colorado, and it sounds like you finally found a place that's near a bunch of trails, which is fantastic. So congratulations to you. Do you plan on visiting the multiple breweries in Flag next weekend? I don't know based on time, Kenneth. So I will be on Flagstaff for work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like those 3 days are pretty much booked out. Monday will be the live show, and then it's going to be hang out, explore, and see the world. I am very excited because I haven't been to like the Grand Canyon in years. Arizona I haven't been to in just forever. Well, years as well. But that whole region, and Kim has never seen this stuff. Kim hasn't been to Arizona. She's been to Vegas. That's it. And so we're going to like basically speed through that because she's already seen it. We're going to try to get to Flagstaff, to Arizona, maybe even get some Utah in there. Basically taking a quick tour of the region. So we're not gone terribly long. So we're back by the following Monday for the live show here. But that's kind of the plan. There'll be a lot of driving. It just isn't going to be a lot of driving. But luckily we can split the duties. Hopefully we can visit as many breweries as possible, I think is the answer to that question. I'm on beer 10 for the day. Wow. Oh, been building a deck. Gotta stay hydrated. I thought I would have drank more beer this weekend. I was surprised at how little I drank being out in the outdoors and camping and stuff like that. But I also just was like in a far more chill, kind of relaxed mood, which I think suited me well. I thought it was a really good weekend for that. If I could come for one race on the West Coast, which is the one I should take? The most awesome for the scenery. Oh man, Eric, opening a can of worms. I would say all of them. When you say West Coast, do you mean West Coast of the U.S. or West Coast of the continent? Because there are some races up in Vancouver and BC, British Columbia that are just incredible. There are races in Washington that are incredible. There are races in Oregon that are incredible, and California. I mean, honestly, there's just the West Coast there's just so much running here. And I know it's the same for the East Coast. And I've been talking to some people and looking at races on the East Coast to travel and race because there are some incredible ones over there. I think Chris Fargo's already gone, but he ran I believe it's Canoga 50 last year and won it. It's either last year or the year before. And the video, they posted a video of that course and it looks incredible. I would love to do something like that. Looks like Last of the Mohican style forests and trails and rivers and canyons and stuff. Between running and Reading, I get in almost 90 miles since Friday afternoon. That's fantastic, Zev. Very well done. I got in a tenth of that, honestly. Very few miles were run this weekend. And at the time, I was really like, it's one of those things. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do tonight's show. I was really frustrated. Oh, man, I'm not getting a lot of running miles. I wish I could get more running miles in. There's not a lot of trails where we're camping. I had to let go of that. I had to be okay with that. And I had to know that this week I'm going to get a lot of miles. Next week I'm going to get even more miles because I'm going to be with Chris Vargo and Alicia and Rob Krar, hopefully some of it. So I'm going to get my ass handed to me, just be running and doing all these crazy runs and stuff. So it's okay to take a down week. And also I ran Quicksilver 2 weeks ago and I always forget that. Like after a race, especially Quicksilver, I didn't even give myself much of a time to recover. I felt pretty good the week after. And then this last week, I just a little bit more tired, so I didn't run as much. And then hopefully this week, my body kind of becomes a little bit more acclimated again and hopefully get some more miles in for next week. You got to be flexible. You got to listen to your body. You got to be okay with it. Benjamin, yes, I believe we are driving because we're going to want our car to drive around the region. We could do a rental. I think it's really expensive. Flying into Flagstaff is also very expensive. Ideally, we'd fly in and have a rental car. I just don't know what the cost is. We're going to look at it this week, but otherwise driving. And it's going to be a long drive. The last time, I just missed it. The last time I was in Flag, the altitude killed me. I have a feeling it's going to be the same. It's not like going to 4,000 or 5,000 feet, Denver, where you feel the altitude for a couple days. You maybe get half your workouts in and just feel it. You just feel it. It's at 7,000 feet. So you get your ass handed to you if you're a sea level guy, which I am. Drink. Oregon and Washington? Oh, yeah. I heard if you run sooner than later, it's better for acclimating to the altitude. Do you mean earlier or later during the day? I don't know if that makes a difference. If I get to altitude, I like to do some workout the very first day I'm there. I found that when I went to Yosemite from sea level, Yosemite Valley is at like 4,800 feet or something. It's not terribly high. There are peaks around here that get much higher than that. But I found when I first started going to Yosemite, the altitude would get me the first 2 days. And there was one day when it was like bad. Like it had snowed. So I don't know if the pressure system or something was fucking with me too, but my whole equilibrium was just off. I felt terrible. Couldn't sleep at all. The next trip we made up there, I ran the first day. The first day that we were there, I did like a hike run up. And I mean, it was really hard because, I'm not used to that altitude, but it was great the whole trip. And anytime I've gone up to any sort of altitude, if I do something physical the first day, second day, it helps a lot. I agree. I don't know if it's an actual fact, if it's some sort of physiological thing that maybe I'm just spewing lies. I feel like it's worked for me. Ginger pub crawl in Flagstaff? Sure. Maybe. Gotta earn it though. Gotta earn it. So I gotta make sure that I work my ass off while I'm there. Way cheaper to fly into Phoenix. Okay, yeah, that's what I figured, Matt, is to fly into Phoenix and then drive into Flagstaff. I think it's a couple-hour drive, but I think it's a 6.5 or 7 hour drive from LA. So you kind of have to weigh it, because if I flew out of LAX, you got to take an hour or two to get to LAX with the parking and the traveling and waiting for the plane, and you fly in and you got another couple hours, or like an hour to get your rental car and another couple-hour drive. So does it actually get you there any faster? A lot more pain-free, I would assume, but we'll weigh the costs. Hey, Ethan, any snakes up in Ojai? So those of you who watched the most recent Adventure Club that I dropped on Friday was Kim and I did a recent trip up to Ojai, and love it up there. It's just beautiful. Really, really cute little California town, little Southern California town nestled at the base of some mountains. And we were warned when we did that trail, the Pratt Loop Trail. There was a woman that lives there. She's like, I live here, and there are rattlesnakes everywhere today, so be careful. I don't know why she's Southern. She wasn't. And we did not see a single snake, not in the entire trip. But it was very hot. I believe it was mid to upper 80s, maybe even low 90s when you started getting to the really exposed sections. And you couldn't really tell in the video. I was using a camera that I just wish I hadn't brought, because it's not very smooth, but the whole front 2-3 miles of that trail are through rocky, overgrown sections. You couldn't see where you were stepping a lot of the time, and there's lots of big boulders with hidden crevices for rattlesnakes. We were on full-on snake alert, and not a single snake, which I'm very thankful for. But we were told that there were going to be a lot of them. We just did not see any while we were there. But I've been told that rattlesnakes do frequent that area quite often. Listen to the Emancipator. Where did I miss? Is the Emancipator in the chat room? While we're on altitude, any tips on when to get to altitude before a race? I'm doing pikes, and I've heard a lot of people say don't get there for a few days early if you can't be there weeks early. I heard a lot of people say don't get there a few days early if you can't be there weeks early. So are they saying don't get there at all? Who was the guest I just had on? I think it was Alicia Shea was talking about altitude, and kind of dealing with that and when's the best time to get to locations. And I think she said, no, it might've been Jason Coop, Coach Coop, was talking about not needing those multi-weeks at a destination race or at an altitude race, but just utilizing the days leading up to the race to acclimatize. It's gonna slow you down no matter what. Even if you're there for 2 weeks, your body's not going to be 100% adjusted. I think this is what he was saying. So your body's not going to be 100% adjusted anyways. So you're going to think it is and put out too much effort and get your ass handed to you, as opposed to arriving a couple days before and not being fully acclimatized. So it slows you down anyways, and you're able to deal with it better. I might be paraphrasing terribly. Ran my first marathon in Ottawa yesterday, Canada. Was wearing my Follow Me to Beer shirt and got 8 Ginger Runner shout outs. You're a star up here in the Great White North. That is awesome. I run Plant Strong. Not the shirt thing, but running your first marathon is awesome. Congratulations. Way to get it done. How did it feel? Did you feel good? Did you get it done? Did you have any goals going into it? Did you conquer your goals? Was it just to finish? It is awesome. Totally awesome. And yes, I will also say it's really awesome that you wore a really cool shirt that people give you shout outs for. I love that. I think that's really rad. The community is everywhere, and it's continuing to spread, and I think that's rad. I really, really love it. Let's see. Congrats. 2 hours up into the mountains. Last time I flew there from Illinois, I took a bus up into Flag. Okay. So only a couple hours. I guess you could take a bus up. I'm going to need a car, though, because if we are going to drive around the Flagstaff region, Arizona, Grand Canyon, stuff like that, we're going to want a car. 14ers haven't even been a problem for me, but upping the effort a lot leaves me cause for concern, says Theodore K2. Well, so, I mean, okay. So, yeah, then if 14ers haven't really been an issue, if you're not getting the headaches or getting the shortness of breath or anything like that with 14ers, you'll probably be just fine for that. And I think if you know going into it, you're going to be dealing with altitude anyways, you're probably going to have a much better, more positive time by just taking down your effort level a little bit. That's my best advice. Anytime I've done anything at altitude, my body slows down anyways, just because it can't work nearly as hard or efficiently without the oxygen I'm used to training in. So I would just say that if you take the effort down a little bit, you'll probably have a much more enjoyable experience and not hawking your food out, at mile 3, which you obviously don't want to do. I have my first marathon scheduled in October in Kansas City. I should get me a follow me to beer shirt. Spread the ginger runner love. Yeah. And I will hopefully be doing more shirt stuff other than what I have in the Zazzle store, because the Zazzle store they're like a middleman. I can design the shirts. They own all the shirts, and then the designs they can put on the shirts, and then they can sell them. I would much rather do it all in-house. So the goal is to eventually have some really cool design shirts, t-shirts, race shirts, stuff like that, that I can hand pick and make sure that you guys get sent from me and Kim, and be really good quality. So that's the goal eventually. Got her done. Way to get that marathon done. I ran around the bay, 30K, also in Canada, and saw 2 people wearing the GR buff. That's awesome. I love that. Snakes on the trail. Visited Austin, Texas, and did my long run during a thunderstorm. Encountered several turtles, terrapins, including one huge one. Made me freak out, dreading if I ever see a snake. I can't imagine seeing a giant turtle on the trail. That's terrifying. I saw multiple frogs at Quicksilver, which was a surprise to see frogs, but most of them had been crushed by mountain bikes or feet. And that was pretty sad, because in the hills outside of San Jose, you wouldn't expect to see frogs. They were there, and they were not alive. So that is sad. Yep, ordered the hat, though. Love it. The hats I'm very excited about. Very excited to get these guys out to you. The manufacturing process is going to be a while. Hopefully, I think early August is what the guy said, because it's 12 to 14 weeks for manufacturing, but that is when I'll be able to send them right out to you guys. I'm very excited. You'll be able to get them before the end of summer and right on into the winter racing season to finish up your year with the hats, which I'm excited about. Been working on my power hiking since I knew it's now all runnable for me. Hiking is a needed part for big day training for me. Great. Oh, so I see what you're saying. Theodore K2 is talking about the altitude training, and he's been working on his power hiking since he knows it's not all runnable for him. Him. Hiking is a needed part of a big day training for me, so that's good. That's excellent. You're gonna be an all-star out there then. That's gonna be excellent. Started over a copperhead today on my trail. Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. This weekend up in Sequoia, there were so many snakes on the road. You'd be driving and you just see a snake go across the road, and it would either get hit by the car in front of you or behind you. It's like, snakes, don't come on the roads. Don't do it. It's a bad day for you if you do. And Eric, yes, a new round of the Ginger Under wraps. I'm gonna be doing a new round of those. Very excited about them. I'm going to be doing a new design and be offering those hopefully soon, because I did the hats and I don't want to just like keep saying like, hey, here's another thing. Here's another thing. I'm going to wait probably 4 to 6 weeks, I think, and then offer those. And very, very excited about those. Dinner. Got the thumbs up. It's going to be done here any second. So I can smell it and I'm starving. It's been a long day without food and not nearly enough of this. So I'm going to finish up my 3-day weekend, finishing off my beer and basking on this weekend's adventures and sending good thoughts to Dave Mackey and hoping that all of you are enjoying the end of your weekend as well. 3-day weekend. I hope you guys let me know, like on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. Even in the comments, once this video has been posted, let me know how your training went this weekend. What did you guys do? Long runs, short runs, runs with groups of people. I love hearing about the community and stuff like that. So leave those in the comments, because I'd love to kind of see that stuff happening. And I want to see, this is something I've been thinking about doing is like run groups, run crews that, like we're kind of creating this cool community here of like-minded individuals all pursuing, the same sort of ideas and health and stuff like that. And I think it'd be really cool to start getting like Ginger Runner run crews around the world, even around the country and stuff like that, where people who maybe watch the show or watch the videos or are familiar with the brand and all that kind of stuff will get together and run together and become good friends. Like ideally, that would be the best. So I want to do more of that. And I'm thinking about doing one here in LA here soon. We're going to all just go out to the trails and do something fun. So if those of you who maybe watch this show regularly and, you know, you live in a certain town in the US or around the globe and you want to throw together some sort of run club or something like that, let me know. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help assist and maybe put out some promotion or something like that, because I think it'd be really rad. People always talk about like, oh, I saw someone running in a race where they saw a Follow Me to Beer shirt. Why not run with that person? Why not find out who that person is and run with them? Because they're obviously in the same city or, you know, something like that. I think it'd be really cool. So that's it. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being patient with tonight's show. It was very much train of thought, brain, what do they call it? Brain spew, I guess, of thoughts and words. A lot of uhs tonight. But I'm going to enjoy the rest of my beer. Enjoy the rest of my weekend. I hope you guys do too. That's it. We'll see you guys next week for Ginger Runner Live 68 from Flagstaff. Oh, boy. It's going to be good. All right. That's it. Train hard, rest hard, party hardest. Goodbye.